In 1943, the British Army knocked on every door in the village of Imber and gave the residents 47 days to leave. Pack your things, lock up, we'll take care of it. That was 83 years ago. The villagers are still waiting to go home. Welcome to 12 places in the United Kingdom that feel like someone invented them on a dare. Real towns, real islands, real tunnels nobody can explain. We're starting with the strangest of the strange, and by the end you're going to be questioning whether Britain is just one giant open-air mystery novel. Let's get into it. Number 12. Imber, the village on Salisbury Plain. Deep inside a military training zone in Wiltshire sits a perfectly preserved medieval village where nobody has lived for over 80 years. In December 1943, the War Office showed up and told every single resident they had until just before Christmas to pack up and leave. The village would be used to train American troops for the invasion of Europe. They promised the villagers they could return after the war ended. That promise was quietly broken. Today, Imber is still owned by the Ministry of Defense. The old church of St. Giles still stands, and a handful of stone cottages remain, riddled with bullet holes from decades of live fire exercises. The public is allowed in only a few days a year. Walking through Imber feels like walking through a crime scene, where the crime was committed by paperwork. Number 11. Greenard Island, the Anthrax Island off the coast of Scotland. Just off the northwest coast of the Scottish Highlands, there is a small green island in a beautiful turquoise bay. For 48 years, no living human was allowed to set foot on it. In 1942, British scientists released weaponized anthrax spores on Greenard Island to test biological warfare as part of plans for a potential retaliation against Nazi Germany. They used sheep, and the sheep died within days. The spores soaked into the soil and refused to leave. Greenard was quarantined, fenced off, and marked with warning signs in multiple languages. It was not declared safe until 1990, after the entire island was soaked in seawater and formaldehyde. Even now, locals on the mainland will tell you they still will not picnic there. Number 10. Dunwich, the medieval city that drowned. In the 1200s, Dunwich was one of the largest cities in England. It was a major port with 8 churches, shipyards, a thriving fishing industry, and tens of thousands of residents. Today it is a tiny village of around 180 people, and the rest of the old city lies underwater just off the Suffolk coast. A series of brutal storms in the 13th and 14th centuries dragged most of Dunwich into the North Sea piece by piece. Locals used to say you could hear the old church bells ringing underwater during storms. Divers have confirmed the ruins are still there, scattered along the seabed. The last medieval church standing, All Saints, finally collapsed into the ocean in 1922. You can still visit the beach where it used to sit. Do not stand too close to the edge. Number 9. The Williamson Tunnels beneath Liverpool. In the early 1800s, a wealthy tobacco merchant named Joseph Williamson started digging. Nobody knows why. He hired hundreds of men to carve a massive underground labyrinth of tunnels, arches, and chambers into the sandstone beneath Liverpool's Edge Hill neighborhood. Some tunnels lead nowhere. Some open into rooms filled with Victorian garbage. Some have been sealed for over a century, and nobody has any idea what's inside. The prevailing theory is that Williamson was providing employment to unemployed soldiers returning from the Napoleonic Wars. Another theory says he was part of a doomsday cult preparing for the end of the world. A third theory says he was just completely unhinged. Whatever the reason, sections of the tunnels are still being excavated today, and every few years volunteers break through another wall and find another room nobody expected. Number 8. Warren Percy, the abandoned village where the dead wouldn't stay dead. In the rolling hills of North Yorkshire, there is a deserted medieval village that was abandoned sometime in the 1500s. Stone foundations poke through the grass, and the ruined church of St. Martin still stands at the center. It looks peaceful. It is not peaceful. In 2017, archaeologists studying bones found at Warren Percy announced that a number of skeletons showed unmistakable signs of being decapitated dismembered, and burned after death. The pattern matched medieval folklore about how villagers dealt with suspected revenants, corpses they believed could rise from the grave. In other words, the people of Warren Percy were killing their dead a second time, just to make sure. Something happened in that village, and whatever it was, they were terrified enough to chop up their neighbors over it. Number 7. Fingal's Cave on the Isle of Staffa. Off the west coast of Scotland, in the Inner Hebrides, there is an uninhabited island with a sea cave that looks like it was designed by a mathematician having a religious experience. Fingal's Cave is carved entirely from hexagonal basalt columns formed by ancient volcanic activity. The columns rise in perfect geometric pillars on either side of the entrance, and the acoustics inside are so strange that the cave hums and echoes with every incoming wave. The composer Felix Mendelssohn visited in 1829 and was so moved he wrote an entire overture about it. Celtic legend says the cave was part of a bridge built by the giant Finn McCool to cross the sea to Ireland. Standing inside Fingal's Cave, listening to the ocean sing through the basalt, you can kinda see why they thought a giant built it. Number 6. Portmeirion, the fake Italian village in Wales. If you wander through a quiet Welsh estuary in Gwynedd, you will eventually stumble across what appears to be a coastal town on the Italian Riviera. Pastel buildings, ornamental gardens, Mediterranean domes, bell towers, fountains, and colonnaded squares. It is all real, and none of it belongs there. Portmeirion was built between 1925 and 1975 by an eccentric Welsh architect named Sir Clough Williams Ellis, who wanted to prove you could develop a beautiful site without ruining it. He scavenged architectural salvage from demolished buildings across Britain and reassembled them into this hallucination of a Mediterranean village in the middle of the Welsh coast. It is the filming location for the 1960s cult series The Prisoner, and it is still operating as a hotel and tourist attraction today. One man, one vision, one village pretending very hard to be in Italy. Number 5. Orford Ness, the Cold War shingle ghost. Off the Suffolk coast, there is a long finger of shingle beach that was, for most of the 20th century, one of the most secretive military research sites in Britain. Orford Ness was used for testing atomic weapon components, radar systems, and ballistics throughout both World Wars and the Cold War. The pagoda-shaped test cells still stand along the shoreline, concrete bunkers designed to contain explosions from nuclear trigger experiments. Today, the site is owned by the National Trust and is accessible only by boat. Visitors walk past rusted equipment, abandoned control rooms, unexploded ordnance warning signs, and buildings no one is allowed to enter because the floors might give way or because no one remembers what is buried underneath. The wind whips across the shingle, and the pagodas stare out at the sea like forgotten monuments to secrets that were never declassified. Number 4. St. Kilda, the islands that gave up. 40 miles west of the Outer Hebrides, in the middle of the wild North Atlantic, there is an archipelago that had been continuously inhabited for over 2,000 years. Until one day in 1930, the remaining 36 residents of St. Kilda asked the British government to evacuate them. Life had become impossible. Harsh winters, crop failures, disease brought by tourists, and the slow drain of young people leaving for the mainland made survival no longer viable. On August 29, 1930, they gathered their belongings, left their Bibles open on their kitchen tables, and sailed away from Hirta forever. The stone cottages of the main street are still standing. Sheep still graze among the ruins. St. Kilda is now a dual UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the only residents are a handful of researchers, military personnel at a radar station, and the ghosts of a civilization that lasted 2 millennia and ended on a Tuesday. Number 3. Bodmin Moor, the Jail and the Beast. Bodmin Jail is a real 18th century prison in Cornwall where public executions were carried out for generations. The old cells still exist, and some are open as a dark tourism attraction. The building has a reputation among paranormal investigators as one of the most active sites in Britain. But Bodmin's real weirdness, the beast, lives on the moor outside. Since the 1970s, hundreds of locals and farmers across Bodmin Moor have reported sightings of a large black cat, roughly the size of a panther, stalking livestock and leaving mutilated sheep in fields. The British government actually conducted an official investigation in 1995. Their conclusion was that there was no verifiable evidence of an exotic predator living on the moor. The sightings never stopped. Farmers still find dead animals, and Bodmin Moor at night, with the jail looming in the distance, is not somewhere you want to be alone. Number 2. The Hellfire Caves of West Wycombe. Buckinghamshire does not exactly scream occult aristocrat cult headquarters. In the 1700s, a wealthy member of parliament named Sir Francis Dashwood carved a network of chalk tunnels half a mile into a hillside in West Wycombe and used them to host the Hellfire Club. The club's members included some of the most powerful men in Britain, allegedly including Benjamin Franklin during his time in London. What exactly went on down there remains unclear. Historical accounts describe mock religious rituals, drinking, gambling, and gatherings with women the members called nuns. More lurid accounts suggest black masses and occult ceremonies held in an underground chamber called the Inner Temple, located beneath an underground river Dashwood named the River Styx. The caves are open to the public now. You can walk straight down into the hill and stand in the chamber where the Georgian elite came to misbehave. It is cold down there in a way that regular caves are not. Number 1. Balnakeil, the Cold War base that became a hippie commune. In the far northwest corner of mainland Scotland, close to nowhere and accessible only by a single winding road, there is a cluster of square concrete buildings sitting in a field. In 1954, the British government built this site as a top secret early warning station in case of nuclear attack. It was operational for exactly 0 days. By the time construction finished, the technology was already obsolete and the entire base was abandoned before it was ever used. Then in 1964, the local council had an idea. They advertised the abandoned base as available for any craftsperson willing to move there and start a workshop. A group of artists, potters, weavers, painters, and woodworkers moved in. They are still there today. Balnakeil is now officially called Balnakeil Craft Village, and it is one of the strangest settlements in Britain. Cold War concrete, bunkers repurposed into pottery studios and art galleries run by descendants of hippies. At the literal end of the road, at the top of the country, a nuclear ghost town that became an art colony. You genuinely cannot make this up. That's the list. 12 places across the United Kingdom that absolutely should not exist, and somehow do. If you enjoyed this one, check out the video on screen now, and subscribe for more.